So here's a rough example of what you'll find to wire a plug, a switch, and a light. You will need either a Phillips, a number 1, a number 2 Robertson, or a straight blade screwdriver. Another important thing to know is the wire that you're going to be using. This is 14-2. The white wire is called a neutral, the black wire is called a hot, and the bare copper wire is a ground. The most important part of all wiring is grounding. That's what saves your life. So it's important to make sure that the box and the light and the switch are all properly grounded. There are 2 screws in the very back of the box. The bare copper wire goes against the small screw in the back of the box. If you have 2 bare copper wires, you go underneath each screw, tighten the screws down to make sure it's properly grounded. And then the ground wire will go to the device. We're going to start off by wiring a plug. On one side of your plug, you're going to have brass screws. That's where your hot goes. On the other side is silver screws. That's where the white wire goes, your neutral. And the green is your ground. Green is always ground. We'll start off by wiring the ground first. Nice and tight. Then you put your neutrals on the silver screw, always putting them on the rotation of the screw. Turning the screw and the wire together to make sure it's a nice tight fit. The wire should be shaped in the rotation of the screw to make sure the screw does not spin it off backwards. Making sure the wire is nice and tight on the neutral. Then you spin around and you would tighten the black on the brass screws. Again, making sure they're nice and tight, no loose joints. And before tucking your wires back in, you'd take your grounds to make sure that they're all out of the way, push them to the back of the box, and as you push the plug back into the box, you would slowly form the wires into the box, making sure that nothing is touching the sides. A smart idea is to take black electrical tape and just wrap your screws. And then that way, if something is touching the side of the box, the tape will insulate it and stop it from sparking. Next, we'll move along and we will do a switch. The switch has the neutral wires joined together. You don't do anything on the switch with the neutral. The neutral wires just get threaded together. And then they get put back into the box. Same thing, making sure your box is grounded properly. And then you take one of the ground wires and you connect it to the switch. Almost all switches are grounded now, so it's a nice safety factor. Again, making sure it's nice and tight, making sure your joints are good. Then you take the black wire, the hot, and you going around the screws again. A lot of the fixtures have pin joints, and what that means is there's little wee holes on the back of the fixtures, and you can just push them into the back of the plug or the switch. They're called pin joints. There's a little hole like that, so instead of actually wrapping the screw, you can push them in there. The problem what we've found over the years is that those joints loosen after a while and you lose a joint, and then it takes a long time for an electrician to find where the problem is because it looks like it's properly connected, but really the joint has come loose and you've lost the circuit. So I pretty well tell everybody to make sure they wrap the screw, just for the fact that then you know it's a good joint and it's not going to loosen over the years. It's going to stay nice and tight. Again, making sure everything's nice and tight. Got good joints. You have good continuity. So when you're looking at your switch, you have a ground wire, you have your hot, and your neutral is pigtailed together inside the box. Now we're moving on to our light. And when you're doing lights, what you'll find is the exact same thing. There's going to be a brass screw and a silver screw. Again, the hot and a neutral. This is just a keyless fixture, so there's no ground on it, but most light fixtures nowadays have a ground. So you'd ground the wire with the bare copper wire that is in the back of your box, making sure that that is grounded. But because there's no ground wire here, we just tuck it in the back. We connect our white wire to the silver screw. Our black wire to the brass screw. And we have now completed a plug, a light, and a switch. So what would happen, we would just slowly tuck these in, making sure everything is nice and tight, put tape around these joints, screw it in, and then we'd be able to energize our circuit. So this is the final of the plug, the switch, and the light. We now have a working light. There you have it. Play safe.